Hello my beautiful lily pads. Today we are doing a new reaction to a different channel. I had a suggestion for this one. It was for, I think his name is Blue Jay, and it's history's worst Olympic marathon in a nutshell. Very timely because the Olympics just started like 4 days ago or something. So let's check it out. Here we go. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Any interaction helps with the algorithm, so please help me out.
With roots spanning 2,800 years to ancient Greece, the Olympics have become the pinnacle of athletic achievement, with the awarding of a gold medal.
I always
being
wondered
seen as
how I got like
internationally equivalent
modernized.
to winning a Nobel Prize, Pulitzer Prize, or my parents' approval. The world's best from all walks of life meet to prove their excellence in
Best pointy
humanity's
stick
greatest
thrower.
cities. Athens, Paris, St. Louis. Yep, the third
Ew.
Olympic Games and America's first outing as host took place in St. Louis in
Oh
1904.
my god, did it really?
But early 20th century St. Louis doesn't quite have the sex appeal of Athens or Paris. So how does one spice it up a bit?
I mean, current St.
That's right.
Louis is
Rat
gross.
poison,
Why
brandy,
would
and
anyone want to
human
go there?
experimentation.
Love the salsa music.
Originally, the 1904 Games were to be held in Chicago, but that same year,
Dude, that
World's
would've
Fair was
ruined our
celebrating the
town.
centennial of the Louisiana Purchase in St. Louis. What would be the world's largest fair to date?
What's that
had
movie, Take Me to
fascinating
St. Louis?
exhibits
I love
like
that
the first
movie.
ever X-ray machine, the radio
With Judy
phone,
Garland?
and all your favorite different-looking people on display. Remember, kids, you
Oh
can't
my
have a fair
God.
without a healthy dose of racial superiority.
Oh my
Even
God.
with indigenous mud-throwing contests being the crowd drawers they are, they didn't want to have to compete for spectators. So they threatened to overshadow the Olympics with their own sporting events, and successfully moved the Olympics to St. Louis. The first debacle in the clusterfuck that was the 1904 Olympics was the issue of location. With them lazy Wright boys not having double-decker Boeing 747s out yet, for foreign athletes, getting to St. Louis involved a lengthy boat trip.
Yeah, I feel
followed
like that
by
would be
a
very
1,000-mile train ride.
inconvenient.
Combined with the fact that the Russians and Japanese were having a disagreement at the time, a measly 12 nations showed up.
Why
with
would they
only
have it in
62 of the
America?
651 athletes hailing from outside of North America. But the eye of the storm centered on the iconic marathon event. The 1904 Olympic Marathon was more freak show than showpiece, ironically more fitting for the fair-like atmosphere than a prestigious sporting event.
We have marathon
Instead
at
of the typical
home.
morning start time, this one was held in the afternoon, where temperatures soared to 92 degrees Fahrenheit with humidity in the 90s. This means the race took place with a heat index of a scorching 135 degrees Fahrenheit.
No.
For context, ideal marathon conditions are around 41 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like replacing your
That's
CPU
nice.
cooler with a tungsten arc welding torch. Only 32 runners from 4 nations participated in the race. A few were experienced runners, having won or placed in past marathons, but the majority were misfits. Of these misfits, we have 2 South African Tswana tribesmen visiting St. Louis for a certain World's Fair exhibit, who ran the race barefoot.
God, that
10
is
Greeks who had never run a
messed
marathon
up.
a day in their lives. And Cuban national Felix Carbajal, a former mailman who demonstrated his running skills
So,
throughout Cuba to raise
like,
money.
the athletes at
He
the
was
time
on
weren't
record to have
trained?
ran the entire span
They're just
of the
random
island.
people?
Once
Only
he
a
raised
few of them
enough
were
to
actually
buy passage
trained?
to the U.S. and to
That's
ride to New
weird.
Orleans.
When did they start training
What's
them?
this quaint little contest? Dice. One in. Oh, well, I suppose I could spare $1 or $2.
Oh, there goes your dollar.
Upon arrival, Felix lost all of his money on a game of dice, forcing him to hitchhike and walk his remaining journey to St. Louis. Felix approached the starting line in
That's
a
what you
long-sleeved
get.
shirt, long dark pants, street shoes, and, naturally,
Oh my
a beret.
God.
Hey, when you're 5 feet tall and amongst marathoners and all their short shorts, thigh glistening glory, you have to send out someone. A fellow Olympian felt bad and offered him
He's
scissors
gonna
to
have
cut
a
his
heat
pants, making him some
stroke.
improvised shorts that bring a smile to any redneck's face.
Uh-huh.
The starting pistol was fired, and the runners embarked on a course that one official called, quote, the most difficult a human being was ever asked to run over. The track consisted entirely of dirt roads and fractured stone, providing difficult footing,
Why?
with 7 hills
I
ranging
mean,
from
it
100
was the
to 300
1900s,
foot
I guess.
verticals and long ascents.
So I guess they
Running on
have,
public roads also made the race somewhat of a
like,
game
the
of Frogger,
early
with runners having to
1990s.
dodge trains,
So I guess they had
wagons,
some
streetcars, and
excuse.
dog walkers.
Ah,
Not
just like
even the air
Frogger.
was safe, with cars driving alongside the runners, kicking up dust for them to inhale. Uphill running, dusty
Ugh.
mouth, scorching heat.
This poor
I could really
guy.
go for some water.
What? Water? What are you, a pussy?
Meet James,
What?
chief organizer of the Olympic Games. One day, James pondered a question we all have from time to time. What would happen if I forcibly dehydrated someone? To study the effects of purposeful dehydration, James decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, planning a marathon with only a single water station on the course. A dirty well. 11 miles that gave you dysentery. At the start of the race, Fred Lorse took the lead, with Thomas Hicks passing him shortly after. One of the barefoot South Africans was chased a mile off course by wild dogs. John Lorden began vomiting profusely and gave up. William Garcia was found collapsed on the brink of death after coughing up blood in the middle of the track, hemorrhaging with a ripped stomach lining and dust-lined esophagus.
These 4 people.
Interesting. Meanwhile, Felix was actually making good time, despite pausing to talk to every spectator along the track. During the race, Felix casually remembered he hadn't eaten in the past 40 hours. He then saw people in a car with some peaches and asked for one, to which they said no.
Damn.
Hey, the fuck! Later on in the race, he went up on an orchard and ate some apples, which then turned out to be rotten.
I was gonna say, those apples are gonna kill him.
So he decided to lay down and take a nap. Despite all odds and setbacks, Felix would actually go on to finish 4th. 9 miles in, Fred Lorse called it quits after cramping up.
Well, I mean, it's like a death fucking race.
And runners as he passed. Thomas Hicks started
at least he's alive, shit.
10 miles in, and begged his coach for water. But his coach, believing the only people who ever needed water were Aquaman and pussies, settled for sponging his mouth out with some warm distilled water. Hicks really started to
what is wrong with these people?
Finish, which is where Dr. Charles Lucas sprung into action, giving him a mixture of strychnine and egg whites. Some call it a performance enhancer, some call it rat poison. I say it's 1904, so what's the difference? Keep in mind, early 20th century doctors were little more than licensed murderers. The car Fred Lorse was hitching broke down 19 miles in. Having recovered from his cramps, he decided to pull a sneaky and rejoin the race, passing doped-up Hicks and later the finish line in first place. Those at the stadium didn't know about Fred's disqualification, so they hailed him as the winner, and Fred played along. It even went so far that Teddy Roosevelt's daughter, Alice Roosevelt, took a picture with him and placed a wreath over his head. She was lowering the gold medal over his neck when a spectator stepped in. Hey, yeah, that guy was disqualified. You suck.
You kind of had it coming. Oh no.
So I may have made that part up.
Well, that was
the booze. This friend tried to play it off as a joke, claiming that he never intended to go through with it.
He did though.
Hicks, who had lost motivation when Fred passed him, painfully picked up his pace after hearing of his disqualification. However, recently poisoned Hicks started to turn gray and limp, so they dosed him again with strychnine.
Oh my god, why would they do that?
So you know how when you're
why would you do that?
And think to yourself, these sports have a serious lack of alcoholism. Well, Hicks' team thought so too, so they washed the lethal drug down with some brandy. Why drink water when you can have ethanol? Hicks started running mechanically, like a well-oiled machine. His face
poor
sunk,
child.
his eyes dim, his palms are
well, he's not a
sweaty,
child,
weak,
but
arms are heavy.
poor
20 miles
man.
In, Hicks started hallucinating, firmly believing he had another 20 miles to go. He begged his team for something to eat, but they just gave him more brandy instead. Poison and shit-faced. Just like my 2 a.m. Taco Bell runs.
Oh, this is like making me physically
sick. The
sick.
final stretch, with his trainers carrying him across the finish line, where he received the gold medal. Only 14 of the original 32 runners finished the race, the worst finish ratio in Olympic history. Here's a graph of gold medal marathon times throughout history. And here's Hicks' time. A full 29 minutes and 8 seconds slower than the second longest winning time in history, and almost 45 minutes longer than the slowest finisher in the 2016 Olympic marathon. It took 1 hour and 4 doctors for Hicks to feel well enough to just even leave the stadium.
Oh my god!
Lost 8 pounds over the course of the race.
What?
So if Sullivan's experiment taught us anything, it's one hell of a weight loss program. So, in conclusion, while the 1904 Olympic Marathon featured the first 2 black Olympic athletes and a Blue Jay-approved amount of alcohol, it also resulted in multiple near fatalities and resembled less of an expertly organized event and more of an Ed, Ed, and Eddie scheme. 2 out of 10 stars.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was hella disturbing. Like, oh, so glad that medical everything pretty much has gotten a lot better. Oh, tell me what you thought about that video in the comments. I'm a little scarred right now. I'll see you guys later. Bye.